Hello, everyone. Good morning. Good morning. I am back today with the video. Before we get in, I just want to introduce myself. If you are new coming to this video for the first time, hello. My name is Deidre. I am a certified life coach, and I help rehabilitate women who have experienced toxic relationship cycles so they can boss up and break free. So today I wanted to cover emotional wounds. Emotional wounds. Now, with me, if you know me by now, I love analogies, and how I teach people is according to what we experience on our daily life, because I believe it just helps process things so much better and help you to really make that lesson applicable, right? So we're going to deal with emotional wounds. And one thing I thought about were roots. When you are dealing with roots, they are literally like the organs of a plant, right? So they provide the nutrients of the plant. The plant is hydrated with water from the roots, and it's just like it's the basis of growth. Growth in life come from the root. Now, if the plant is not the plant, but if the root is not healthy, if it's damaging, if it's toxic, then it will discolor the plant and it will ultimately cause the plant to die. And so when I think of roots, I think of stability. You know, how many of us can say we're truly stable in our emotions and how we respond to things? Like, is it from stability or is it from instability? So, what I want to talk about is how the deeper the roots are, the deeper the roots are in the ground, the more firmer the plant will be able to grow because the foundation is solid. But if it's rotten and concentrating, sometimes it could be so bad if a root is rotten that it can not only spread to the plant that's growing out of it, but it could cross contaminate and go to other plants. And now, not only is it toxic in one environment, but it's so toxic that it spreads to different things. And so, the reason why I'm sharing this with you is because um, people tend to not understand how effective emotional wounds can really affect the environments around them, but also them. You could literally be growing just to die. And I'm not talking about a physical death or any of that, but I'm talking about areas that just stop progressing, areas that are stagnant, where you find yourself at the same place every year. And so, what we're going to do, we're just going to sit here and dig into that for a moment. So, a scenario that came into my head, guys, was because I like to make things applicable that people who are dealing with everyday life can understand. So, some people, they have dealt with having a parent or a guardian or somebody close to them having an addiction, right? So say the addiction is the root. That's what is allowing things to grow. This is all you knew growing up. This is what you saw was addiction. So now what happens is what grows out of that is emotional and physical um, wounds such as neglect, feeling unsafe, you're mentally and now emotionally unstable because people with addictions, let's be honest, when you're addicted to something, your the way you perceive things is based on your appetite being fulfilled. And when your appetite is not being fulfilled for that desire, then sometimes you don't know what you're going to get out of that person. So it now imprints on the person who is witnessing this addiction to have emotional ups and downs and high and lows because they're not seeing what emotional health looks like, positive emotional health looks like. So it can also cause trust. Your trust can be broken, right? It's hard to sit here and build a trust or see somebody come from a pure place when you're always seeing somebody using things to manipulate and align with their addiction. So if they are wanting something, they're going to do anything by any means to get it, right? And now you're seeing deception in the home, how they're going about getting what they want, whether that be stealing money, whether that be stealing items from the home to sell it. So it's kind of, there's so many factors of roots. Emotional roots take form in how people are responding to situation, and ultimately that root now grows things within you that you operate in. And so many times people just see problems from a surface level but don't understand and analyze it from an interior level, where you're literally seeing the different things, seeds of sabotage can be planted just from one toxic thing alone. That's the thing about toxicity, especially poison. You see a lot of things where on labels regarding certain things, it tells you to keep out of reach of children. Why? Because if they consume a certain level of this, it can be very toxic to them. They often will tell you to take them to the emergency room immediately, or to report to poison control, so they can now give you directions on how to make sure the child is not negatively impacted by something that they consume. So, what I'm saying to you is this: so many of us, right, we are literally allowing toxic things to now rest upon us. And because it rests upon us, we are not liable to say what it now is going to do, right? Because let's be honest, with the poison, it can literally cause physical death. Like, it can cause physical death. It can cause your body to go in shock, maybe have seizures, maybe sit here and fall into, there's different aspects of what toxic things can do physically. So imagine what it can do emotionally, right? You're not liable to now determine what toxic thing that has consumed you, whether that's been through observation, whether that's been through words thrown at you like darts, whether that's just been around negative environments, hearing conversations. You're not liable now to know what type of stuff is being planted within you, right? So that's what I want to talk about. And just to take this thing further with addiction, if you are seeing addiction up close in an environment, it can now distort your way of thinking financially too. Because when you're seeing somebody use addiction, they're manipulating money to sit here and feed a toxic habit. So now it can do so many things. It can distort how you perceive money, where you now think the only way to spend money is to consume it on things that you desire. You can now sit here and have an unhealthy view of money, where it's just like now every money you get, you just don't, you want to hold on to, you don't want to give to others. You're very, very selfish because you feel like as quick as it comes, it'll go. Like, there's different mindsets that can be breeded out of toxic behavior just by observing alone. And then you can start seeing, it can also impress a bad habit on you, where because you're seeing addiction, now you want to self-medicate because you've seen that's the means to resolving solutions that are bothering you. So self-medication. And then instability as a whole. Like, it's hard for you to understand what stability looks like because you never seen it. So now instability always breeds out of everything you do, because that's all you know, that's all you've seen. So I want you to get into the habit. This is not to discourage or anything, but I want you to get in the habit of being experts at spotting unhealthy things within your life, because you'll be surprised at how much easier it is to pinpoint toxic things in people's life. Because I know y'all seen it, y'all been around people. It seemed like, man, they always got a word for everything. It seemed like they can evaluate your life up and down to the T, telling you what you did wrong, what you need to do better. But for some reason, when it comes to their life, they're blindsided. And so this is why my goal for this is to help you to self-evaluate your own life. Learn how to spot things so it's not disguising itself and then ultimately showing up at the worst way possible. So this is what I want to teach you is how to deal with dead roots, how to deal with dead roots and reviving what has now become toxic, right? We're learning how to revive those parts that have now been toxic. The interesting thing about a root, guys, is even if it's toxic, there's a 50% chance that it can sit here and be recovered. So, what they typically tell you is look at the bottom of the root. And if you still are seeing like the white, the roots are kind of white, but there's like a small portion that's kind of brown and crumbly, you can like pick that out and then put the plant back in, and ultimately restoration can happen with the plant, right? But then there are some things where the root is so brown and crumbly and so toxic, it can ultimately lead to death. But we are going to be positive and understand that regrowth is always possible. And I want you to understand this and get this in your head. Regrowth is always possible. There is no root too deadly that you can't sit here and be resuscitated from. Okay? We often look at the things that we have breeded from that dead space and think, hey, this is it. But we are learning now that regrowth can happen in a dead situation. So, what I want you to understand today is that the requirement for recovering a root is to sit here and visit the nutrients it's receiving, right? The nutrients the plant is receiving, cutting the dead root. But now you cut the root off and now you're sitting here and able to plant, you're able to water, you're able to do whatever, because now the root can sit here and do what it's always been called to do. It's been called to be an organ to the plant body and called to allow that plant body to observe what it needs to observe in order to thrive and survive. Okay, so emotional nutrients, what that looks like is what environment are you around? Like, are you around an environment where conversations are literally sparking you to stretch your thinking, like the capacity of your thinking is stretching for you to see possibilities rather than problems? Like, is that happening? Or are you in an environment where the nutrients is very not nutrients at all, is very unhealthy? Like the conversations breed on your problems, the conversations keep you in a holding place where you are always viewing things in a negative space. Like everything is negative. How you perceive how you look, how you perceive your situations, how you perceive where you are, everything is negative, then that is not receiving the necessary nutrients. It's hard to thrive when you are stuck on toxicity. Like it's hard, right? And some and nutrients, emotional nutrients would be, what are you watching? What are your eye gates literally being a holding space to? You'll be surprised that what you're watching actually has a lot to do with your mind. Like in neuroscience, guys, they say like 4 to 5 hours, I believe, of just screen time alone does something to the brain where it causes you to either have a hard time sleeping or I forgot what it was. It's either a hard time sleeping, and I forgot what the other thing was. But there is so much brain function going on and so much activity going on with the pictures and the blinking and stuff that is causing your mind to sit here and be drained from that. And what I'm going with this is that your mind plays a pivotal part in your execution. So, execution starts in the mind. It's hard to live a life of something that has not been deposited within the mind first. So, if I'm constantly entertaining my entertaining things that are opposing what I'm trying to get rid of is going to be hard because my mind has to be in alignment with what I'm doing. You see what I'm saying? And other nutrients also, as well, is what type of environment are you with your career? Are you around people who have an eye for vision, have an eye for going forth, have an eye for seeing things greater? Sometimes you need people around you that have a bigger vision than you. Sometimes you need people around you that can see far beyond you, who have crazier faith in you. Why? Because it's going to constantly always push you to keep going up. It's difficult to be around people who have a one-sided perspective because it limits your way of thinking and it ultimately influences how you think. And that's not what we want. So the key thing here, and I'm going to say it again, is emotional nutrients, emotional nutrients, emotional nutrients. What are you feeding the inward part of you? Because the outward part of you only reflects what's being deposited in the inside of you. If I'm constantly depositing sadness, the outward part of me is going to look at every situation I have as a sad story. If I'm depositing faith filled things within me, then the outcome of that is going to be actions that exhibit faith. And so we have to understand our actions are speaking loudly of what is hidden. So many people think it's hidden, but it's not really hidden. If you really want to know somebody's heart's posture, look at their actions, even the facades. It's not really hidden because you can really pinpoint a facade. But what I'm trying to tell you is that emotional wounds are the loudest thing that speaks out of your life. Your life speaks of what you're carrying and what you're holding inwardly. And if not addressed, it can cross contaminate everything you put your hands to. And we don't want wounds to sit here and be inflicted on others. We don't want to spread emotional diseases on people, right? And in order for us not to spread what we are experiencing, we have to pick it up by the root. And I know it's easier said than done. So, what does picking up by the root look like? If I am having an emotional and physical instability, let's start there. What can I possibly do? Because this is a journey. It has to be more than one step. If I'm having emotional instability, right? And how I react to things, I get easily angry. So I can do several things. I could go to anger management, right? Another thing is I can start journaling, releasing things every time I get upset. Instead of sitting here using my words, I go use my pen and my paper. What is this teaching me? Is teaching me to not be so quick and swift to release things that I'm prematurely don't even understand that I'm dealing with, but I'm releasing it in the confinement of just me so I can be an expert at processing what I'm feeling. So by the time it is released out of my mouth, I'm making sure my words are not a weapon against others, but my words are utilized to nourish others and help them to see what I'm feeling, as well as me being able to perceive what they're dealing with. And that's another thing too. Emotional instability, how can you manage that too? You can make a decision. Every time I sit here and get upset, I'm going to go take a walk. Every time I sit here and get upset, I'm going to give myself 5 to 10 minutes to sit here and move away. But there has to be a strategy in place for change. Because if there's no strategy, there's always going to be an open door for setback because you don't know how to get there. Imagine this. You've been doing the same thing your whole life and you decide to now, I'll take it for a diet. Imagine you sitting here eating the same thing your whole life, right? and you decide to eliminate it, especially if it's a very toxic food like refined sugars and stuff, and you're eating it all the time, and you decide to tell your body, hey, I'm not consuming this anymore. What happens? Even though you've made the decision that you don't want to consume that no more, your body has not gotten the memo to your shift. So what happens now is, because there was no system in place to say, okay, what would I do once my body feels like X, Y, and Z? I now allow my body to dictate what it's familiar with, and I now go back into a habit that I was trying to break. Right? So, what we need to do now is, what would be a more beneficial thing to do is, hey, I want to cut this refined sugar out of my diet. So, what I'm going to do is now substitute what I'm putting out of my diet and substitute with something else. So, in this case, I may find a healthier source of sugar, right? I may do fruits. Or I may say I can only eat certain sugars once a week. Like, there has to be some type of strategy that helps slowly transition you to not do something that is familiar to you. Familiarity is what is the cause of not being able to break something, because you're used to it. And when you get used and in a habit of something, it takes an adjustment, because that's all you know. That's all you feel. So when you're not feeling that, and your mind has now been programmed and shifted to see things a certain way or feel something a certain way, when you're not doing that anymore, it's like it puts your life in shock. It puts your emotions in shock. It may put your body physically in shock, given on what you're doing. And so you have to be very, very strategic on shifting things. Be very, very strategic. And a lot of things I told y'all in the beginning with one of my videos. I said, um the thing about God, he speaks so loudly in physical functions. If you really want to know how the Spirit of God operates, just observe how physical things operate. And the Bible says that everything that is created, every seen thing that is created by everything that is unseen, the spiritual realm, the spiritual world. So what I want to tell you is that, just like physically, how you eat, and the doctors sit here and tell you, nutritionists tell you, like, hey, you have to be careful of what you consume, and they tell you what type of toxic foods, what they do to the body, processed foods, how it literally can open the door for being diabetic, how it can like rise up your glucose levels, like so many things. They tell you how food can either be medicine, or it can sit here and be a weapon against you, right? So that's the same thing emotionally, dealing with the spirit and all of that. If you think physically, if you consume the wrong thing, what it does to the body, imagine what it's doing to your emotional well-being. When you're consuming things that are not in alignment to where you need to be as far as emotional and physical stability. So my encouragement to you is, what is your consumption level? What is it looking like? Are you consuming things that are going to bring nutrients in every area of your life, whether that be physically, emotionally, mentally, whatever it may be? Are you doing that? Or is your consumption level only sitting here and feeding and breeding, being a bacteria ground that infests where every area of your life is infested with so many things, because your consumption level is toxic. So what I want to tell you, the start of roots is in connection to emotional wounds. The root doesn't necessarily have to be you. And that goes back to the source of the cycle. But the root doesn't necessarily have to be you. It could be who you were connected to. The root could be you living in a family that was very dysfunctional. So what do you do now? You have to now connect the dots to how that dysfunction, how has it dispersed itself in different areas of your life? Do you not know how to communicate? Are you toxic yourself, where you put on facades and are fake? Are you two-faced it? Do you start stuff and not finish it? Are you consistent? Do you lack discipline? Like, there's so many things that are breeded out of roots, right? Because you see plants, you see the different plants that come out, different leaves, different things. So that's the same thing with your life. Your life is like a plant where it's dispersing and growing different things. And if you're not careful, you'll be growing the wrong thing, growing stagnancy, not moving. You're growing, but you're growing and not moving. So, what we want to do is just to make sure that with our emotional wounds, we are taking the time to heal them. And healing is a process. Like I said, it's not something um, that happens. Yes, God can deliver, but even through the deliverance, there is an upkeeping that has to happen on your end for that deliverance to stay in the place that it is when you were first healed. And so what I want to say, and then I'll let you leave, but what I want to say is we have to dig at these things, tear these things apart. Because one even bad root, if not plucked out, could sit here and be a hindrance, right? So revisit those different areas. And I'm telling you, self evaluation is one of the hardest things to do because I think it has, once again, to do with familiarity. Familiarity it makes it hard for you to break because you're used to it. When you're used to something, it can breed blindness, and blindness breeds comfortability. So that's why I say self evaluation is one of the hardest things. It really is, because you're literally asking someone to look at every area of their life and ultimately see if there's anything wrong. Now, all of us have a mindset where we like to think we can't do nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with us. We're nice. We're integral. We're this or that. But the thing about it, when God sits here and processes you, he has a way of beautifully, not a way of breaking you, but beautifully dissecting things to build you up into your destiny. And that's what we want. We want to start dissecting those areas so we can now transform them to in alignment with where he wants to take us to. Okay? But that's all I wanted to cover on today. So if you don't take anything else from this video, I want you to take this: roots. What are the roots of your life? So what is the thing in the ground that is deeply rooted that has now been the instabilizer, the stabilizer of allowing things to grow? From here, 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 and here, allowing things to grow. What has been the root of that? Has it been your mother? Has it been your father? Has it been family members? Has it been a toxic situation that was very traumatic for you as a child? Has it been something that happened recently in the present? Whatever it is, find that root. And then now look at the sources of that root. Because I told you, the thing about a toxic root, it literally discolors the whole plant. It causes the plant to wither and die. So the thing about roots, we often just think, well, I'm just hurt. No, what is your hurt? Are you having trouble communicating? Are you having trouble being connected to people for a long period of time? Do you have trouble keeping relationships, or do you cut people off remotely even if they look at you wrong? Like, that's the type of stems we need to be looking at, the leaves we need to be looking at in our life. Like, what is really trying to go there? What does death look like in my life? And once we sit there and start seeing those things for what they are, guess what? We now know how to sit here and now restructure ourselves to oppose the very thing that's killing our lives and killing others' lives. Because we don't want to be walking dead. We want to be alive. We want to live. We want to be, literally, we want to live. So I think death, people just subject that to a physical death, but it's possible. Even the Bible talks about this. It is possible to sit here and be dead but still living. Some of us don't even know we're walking dead, because we're walking, hovering in things that need to be dealt with and plucked out. But the difficult part I find in people, the reason why it's hard to shift is because they don't know how to have strategies in alignment to shifting. What is your strategy for changing? What is your substitution for dysfunction? I understand I get easily upset. So, what am I going to do to stop getting upset? I understand I easily insult people with my words. So, what is it you're going to do to make sure your mouth is no longer detrimental to other people's hearts? Like, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? Really? So, what I want to encourage you is to find the root. Then, once you find the root, pluck out the toxins. And by plucking out the toxins, I mean get a strategy in place that says, this is what I'm going to do, instead of choosing to keep here and allowing that root to make me have actions that are toxic. And then start feeding what you want to see in your life. If I want to be a lot more nicer in my relationships and treat people how they deserve to be treated in my relationships, then I need to start reading the Bible. I'm going to always say read the Bible, number one. But I need to start reading things that can literally cultivate my mind to shift and align with where I'm trying to go. Or I need to just be entertained by or hear things that are going to uplift me and encourage the part of me that wants to be healed to live. But that's all I want to say to y'all. I keep saying that, but seriously, that's all I wanted to say to y'all. But I love y'all. Have an amazing day. Choose to have a wonderful day. But until next time, I'll see you again. Bye, guys.